Karan, who is going to talk about CI. It's, I think, one of the pretty hot topics these days on MLOps. So I will leave you to Karan on talking about what CI is about and how he's looking at integrating Google Assistant for continuous integration. Karan, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. On the onset, let me wish each one of you a very happy New Year 2021. And thanks to the Global AI SG team for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to present this talk. So thank you so much for that. So before I start with the presentation, I think it's obvious that I need to introduce myself. So about me, so my name is Karan and I'm based out of Mumbai, India. So I've been primarily working maybe before as an Android developer, but more recently I have been dabbling with DevOps, DevSecOps, AI and AR. And this is what has kept me, moving on, and I'm passionate about also learning new technologies. And apart from technologies, I would say I also love to write poems. So I'm a self-published author, as well as I like to travel different parts of the globe and meet new people who are like-minded and who love technology as well. So that's about me in a nutshell. So let's move to the actual topic, and this is what it is. So the topic for today is integrating Google Assistant for continuous integration. So before to actually tell you, there's a quote by the great Albert Einstein, and he said that in the middle of every difficulty there lies opportunity. And this is particularly evident today. So today, if you see the world around, we are all in virtual meetings, right? We are all working from home. Social distancing has become the buzzword nowadays. We are all at home quarantining ourselves, and to be honest, slowly our workspaces are also slowly evolving to come to the terms of this so-called new normal. So this is how the world exists today. So before I come to the topic of my presentation, I would like to highlight a few important concepts I think many of you might be aware as well. So the first concept that I would like to talk about is agile. Now, agile is something that I need not actually tell you, but agile is something that has been there ever since the Agile Manifesto was defined back in 2001. And this is something that has been a lot of software projects are now moving to agile, and the reasons are quite obvious, because agile development, they say, is winning because of its better quality, its improved efficiency, and mainly the reason because it's more result oriented, and one can easily predict the results in that case. So agile development, they say, is one of the big things that has happened ever since the last few decades. The next concept is around continuous integration. So this again is something that is common to all of us right now. So maybe continuous integration is the term implies, is basically putting all your assets, whether it's code or any artifacts, into one common repository or one common place, and then running a series of tests against those to make sure that those whatever is your artifacts are good in terms of quality, and then applying some of the best software engineering practices on those assets to make it better in terms of the quality of the deliverables. So the culture of continuous integration has always been there, and it's just that people have now started realizing the importance and the significance of this process in an organization. So this is again something that I think a lot of you might be aware. But the thing that personally excites me, or I would say, I'm really passionate about, is the third concept, which is voice first technologies. So they say that voice first technologies is one of the next big things. So why is that? Because if you ask me today, what is the best way to solve a problem, I would say it's conversation. So conversation is something that is more natural, so voice first is also more natural, and it helps basically to improve the accessibility as well. So that is basically something that I'm really excited to know about. So a quick check. So I think we all love data, right? So we all love to know what are the different data trends happening around the globe, or what is the predictions that have been done. So this is a quick fact for all of you. So Gartner is one of the famous research organizations out there, and Gartner predicts that 25% of digital workers will use virtual employee assistants daily by 2021. So this is something that is a really big prediction, and this means that I think each one of us would actually have an AI agent with along with us as we work in office. So this is something that, it's really a big prediction. But as developers, I think we are also facing a lot of problems nowadays, so let me also highlight that as well. So moving to the next slide. So, what are some of the problems that as developers we face? So, I'm sure that there are so many problems or so many different scenarios where developers they are like, there are so many problems that happen when you work as a developer or as a software professional. And some of the problems I have highlighted here is as follows. So, first of all, our software projects are no longer those simple projects. So, our software projects are getting complex as we speak. So no longer do we work with an environment where we have a single a client and a single backend. So right now it's like you have multiple backends, and these are like different systems with different technologies, be it like Oracle, SAP. So there's always a change happening over there. So you're working with different kinds of systems, I would say, with different technologies. So there is of course a lot of problems that you face around that area as well. The third part is about the larger team size. Now, this is basically also a problem in a way, because especially when you're working with people with different geographical locations, like situated in different geographical locations and different backgrounds, so it can be a problem. So I'll touch upon this as how this can be a problem maybe in the future slides. But yes, this is also one of the problems right now. And the fourth problem again is the higher learning curve. So what I mean by higher learning curve is that no longer does one expect, one restricts himself to knowing a particular technology. So it's like nowadays it's more like a full stack kind of a role where people know a bit of both the front end and the back end. So there is always a higher learning curve, and people or developers, I would say, are trying to evolve themselves as time progresses. But the main challenge or the main problem is that all this basically has to be done against time. So time is something that waits for no one, and we are all expected to do a lot of things and a lot of things, but we always have the time crunch, which is basically our problem. So how do we solve this, or how do we basically ensure that whatever we deliver is the right product and the quality product, but it happens well in time? So this is something that this problem is something that exists even today. So we all need information to be accessed from anywhere, right? So if you ask me like what information do I have right now, so we need to know all the information, because data is just a collection of facts, but information is how you analyze those facts as well. So let's say if I was a DevOps engineer or a software developer, I think a lot of questions that would come on a day-to-day basis to me would be something like, when was the last build delivered, or how many test cases actually passed or failed, and whether the last build was successful or not, or what was the last commit that broke the build. So these are all sort of questions that you come across or you have been asked on a day-to-day basis, and you need to provide answers to these questions. So there has to be some mechanism or some solution by which you can actually automate all these things. So this is what I'm going to come to the next part. So also before we come to the proposed solution, there are certain challenges that I would like to highlight which exist today. So the first challenge is about dependency and communication. So especially among cross-functional teams. So when I say cross-functional teams, I mean people of different backgrounds. So you have people like belonging to sales, marketing, etc. So maybe in a typical IT project, it would be like the developers or the designers and the testers. So there is always some sort of dependency that exists. For example, as a developer, you would have to wait for the UI or the UX designer to get those wireframes approved and give you the visual designs before you actually end up building the module. And if you're a tester, then you'll have to wait for the developer to actually release the first version before you start testing. So there are a lot of dependencies and certain dependencies that exist among cross-functional teams. And communication, of course, has a very important role to play, because even the slightest of miscommunication nowadays can actually end up building the wrong product. So dependency and communication are two important challenges, I would say, especially among the current setup where we have cross-functional teams. The second challenge is about the time and cost. So we often spend a lot of time nowadays in developing those enterprise-based web portals or reporting portals, as you may call it, with and what happens is that you end up developing those portals with all those beautiful graphs and all those things, but eventually they prove to be useless because over the time you did not actually maintain it, so it stays as it is. So you spend a lot of effort, but then it doesn't serve the purpose over time. So that is what also can be a challenge in the current. Feedback and specific information is also something that has to be done, but without manual intervention, because right now, in order to set up a pipeline, normally you would go into your account, you would actually set up all those stages, etc. So there is always some manual intervention involved. But how about if this was automated? Because we are all in the age of automation, right? So this is something that also we could automate without having the need to actually log in and create your pipeline manually. So this is also one of the challenges I feel. And then coming to the next, which is basically organizational culture and development methodology changes. So what exactly I mean by this is that any organization that basically has a particular model in place. So let's say we have a waterfall model and we wish to transition to an agile model. So this kind of a transition or this kind of change in culture doesn't happen overnight. So there's a lot of things which are involved, and a lot of there's a lot of documentation or knowledge transfer that has to be done before any organization actually adopts a particular model. So these are also some challenges that can happen, and especially when you are transitioning to an agile model, you have to be very careful in terms of how you're going to adapt to this new model. So yes, definitely this also can be a challenge. And the last part is also again something which is very very important, is also the personalization, the user experience, because everyone needs the things personalized to himself or herself. So that is why the user experience and personalization has to be also taken into consideration whenever we are building a solution. And right now there are a lot of challenges involved in that space as well. So these are some of the challenges. Now, coming to the main topic, or the topic for today, is basically how do we actually resolve all these challenges, or how do we resolve all the problems that I mentioned before. So the proposed solution basically involves creating a voice-based communication interface that leverages natural language. Then it would also leverage maybe the existing CI framework. So in this case, I have used Jenkins, but again, it can be extended to any known CI framework out there. And basically, it would expose the RESTful APIs to basically monitor your build status, generate reports, and do a lot of other things as well. And most important, it will leverage the latest AI technology. So in this case, it's DialogFlow, but again, it can be extended to any AI technology to help and communicate with the end user using meaningful conversations. So that is basically our objective. And all this basically would help to provide instant feedback to all those queries without the need of a centralized portal. So we did not actually end up building those portals. We could actually have something that could provide all those information or all those data to the user instantly. So that is basically the idea of this solution. Okay, so moving on to the next parts, basically, which talks about the architecture of this solution. So this is how the architecture basically looks like. So maybe I'll give you a brief overview of what exactly is a part of this solution. So as you can see, there are basically two building blocks in this part of in this architecture. So there is an integration block and a fulfillment block. So the integration block is basically the part where all the intent matching and those things happen. So let's say we have an agent here. So let's say we call that agent as Jenkins, and basically represents our end user. So whenever a particular user sends a request, so that is basically going to go through the integration module. In the integration module, we'll have some intents defined. So intent is basically an end user's intention for a particular conversation. So let's say in this case, I'm asking my agent to give me the list of jobs. So the list of jobs basically is nothing but the list of the jobs that you have defined in your pipeline, and that it will basically, you'll have to create an intent for that. And what will happen is that once you say that particular request, it would do a kind of intent matching. It would classify that particular as a list of jobs, and then it would basically trigger a webhook. So by default, so if you're familiar with Dialogflow basically by default it actually sends you a static or a static default response. So there is no dynamic thing involved by default. But if you have to have something dynamic, you have to make use of something called as webhooks. So webhooks, in layman terms, are nothing but endpoints, or I would say just services that could actually help you to connect to an external API. So in this case, my webhooks are connecting to a service which I have deployed on Heroku. So Heroku is a platform as a service, and these services are then internally talking to the backend or the CI framework. So in this case is Jenkins. So this is how the communication would happen. So once the intent has been matched, it would actually trigger a webhook, and that would actually go into our fulfillment block, which will basically be responsible for getting this information from the CI underlying CI framework, and then sending that response back to the user via the same webhook, as a response. So that is how typically it would work. So imagine you say a query like, okay, give me the list of jobs. So what will it do? It will actually go to the service. It will basically invoke a RESTful API, and that will talk to Jenkins, or in the CI framework. It will query the Jenkins framework to get the list of jobs, and it will send that as a response back to the user. So that is how typically it would work. Of course, I'll be also showcasing a short demo maybe after this presentation, so maybe that picture will be very clear after that. So typically, if in this kind of a scenario, we are also leveraging machine learning, because the integration module, the intent matching module, happens actually using, it uses two algorithms. So we use something called as a rule based grammar and an ML based algorithm as well. So the actually, the best match is produced when you use a combination of both of these. So that is how it works. But one can actually customize the algorithm as per his needs to actually achieve a better, a match result. So that is how it works in that case. And once the result, or once the intent has been matched and the result has been obtained, then it can be relayed back to the end user as as a response. So that is typically how the whole solution is working. So coming to the next slide. So what are the benefits of this kind of a solution? Now again, these are, there are a lot of benefits that I discussed about before as well, but this kind of a solution can be easily extendable to other CI frameworks. So one need not actually rely on using Jenkins. So it can be either Travis CI or Circle CI or any other well-known CI framework. And the reason is that you actually need not worry about the framework, because you can actually customize the APIs or the services that you have in order to talk to all these frameworks. So it can be, you can actually have a more generic kind of a framework that could help to talk to any CI framework. So maybe today there are, say, X CI frameworks, and maybe tomorrow there's another one, so you need not actually change that part. And of course, it helps to obtain information using natural language. So needless to say, you're communicating with your agent or with your bot using natural language. So this is basically something that you are more comfortable doing. It actually also allows the user to remotely monitor status. So again, as I said, we not actually go and log in into a portal, or trigger a pipeline manually. So we can all do this without actually having access to any kind of a portal. And this also actually helps in transitioning. So if in case you have new software developers or new people into your team, you can actually train them, or you can actually make them aware of the process by using this bot itself. So it can be used for training or transitioning as well. And the most important thing is user personalization, which is basically achieved through this kind of a solution, where the voice first approach, basically, since it's voice first, it's learning what you're trying to say, and it over the time it basically gets used to your kind of needs, and it actually tries to personalize itself. So that is the beauty of this kind of a solution, where user personalization and experience basically is maintained. So that is what is one of the benefits as well. So yes, so that's about the solution benefits of this particular solution. So coming to the next slide. So what is basically the future of this kind of approach, or what is the future of this kind of a solution? So I would say that yes, voice first technologies or interfaces are definitely increasing at a very rapid rate right now. People are using voice assistants already. So smartphones and tablets are already personalized, I would say, and even to a certain extent wearable devices. But I think there's a lot up in store maybe for the future, and maybe you never know what would be the next device that would get personalized. And then voice-based applications, of course, they are helpful, because it reduces a lot of human effort. So there is no manual things that we need to do. And maybe there's a lot of research actually going on in the fields of security and verification around voice first. So I hope that these kind of research would eventually in the future help to improve the security aspect as well, and that is also something that we can look forward to in the near future. So this is about the topic for today. So I have listed down a few references and links which you can go through once I will share the slide deck. So thank you so much for attending this session, and again thank you, special thanks to the Global AI team for inviting me. So before I take a few questions, I will now basically show you the video. Okay. So this is basically the video of the solution in action. So this is how it's going to work. So I'll walk you through how the solution is working, and I'll touch upon some of the points. Okay, so as you can see, this is the simulator. So this is the DialogFlow, or the simulator where you can interact with your agent. So you basically query your agent. So you say like how many jobs are running. Okay, so if once you say that, it would actually query the Jenkins, or in this case the Jenkins CI framework, and it would come back. So it would say that okay, you have a total of one job, so whether you want to start or stop a build. So let's say you want to start a build, so you need to basically query again. So you need to say start job, or so if you say start job, so it will identify that you didn't specify the job name. So you'll have to specify also the job name. So in this case, like let's say it's called hello world. So once you say that okay, it's hello world is a job name, so it has got it, and now it will actually start the build for you. So you can go on to Jenkins. So I have logged into Jenkins, and you can see that there is already a build in queue, and that is basically the same one that we triggered through our agent. So yes, so this is basically how it would invoke. And so let me move a little forward. At any point of time, you can actually even query the agent to understand the status of the build. So I understand that because if there are some builds which usually take a longer time, you would actually need some mechanism by which you can understand what is the current status. So there is also an expression or an intent for that, where you ask the agent, okay, tell me the job status, and it would basically say that okay, it's in progress, or it's completed, etc. So let me move a little forward. So once the agent has once the build has been completed, we can again query the agent. So again we will ask the agent, okay, tell me the job status. So this time the build has completed, so it would reply back saying that the build is successful. And then based on that, you can do a lot of other custom actions as well. So either you can email a report. So in this case I have just emailed a report, but you can send do a lot of things. We can integrate with maybe Jira or any other system to actually close that particular ticket or something like that. So this is how typically it would work, and you can actually leverage it in your own way, or tweak it in your own way. So this is how the agent would behave, and this is how the the whole workflow would happen, in this case using Dialogflow and Jenkins. So but again, having said that, it is not specific to the technology. It can be easily extended to any sort of solution that is there out there. So that's it from my side. So if any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at my email address. So I have mentioned it over here, and very happy to collaborate and learn about if you have anything. I would also like to learn about your work as well. And wish you all again a very happy new year 2021, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Karan. Pretty interesting chat. I'll just keep the session open to see if there are any questions, any comments that people might have.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone? Looks like there are none.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Karan. Really appreciate
Okay.
it. All right, we'll have the next session, guys, starting soon. So hopefully all of you will stick around, and I will post the link in a minute on this chat group to see to get you guys towards the next session. All right, give me just a moment. So the next session, for those of you guys who are there, it's by another colleague of mine, Harita. Is going to talk about Azure Machine Learning Studio. I'm pasting the link here, and I will see you guys in about 5 minutes.